I still remember the first time I met Kayla, like time slowed down for a moment, and I suddenly realized I was standing in front of a woman carrying a world shaped by loss. When she smiled, it was warm and radiant, yet there was a subtle sadness lingering beneath it, a quiet weight that only someone who's truly lost something precious could carry. She had loved a man for 3 years, and fate had taken him away in a car accident. Her story wasn't just a distant memory. It lived in every thought, every moment of her life. Listening to Kayla speak about him, I didn't just feel her pain, I saw her strength, her resilience, and the way she cherished those memories without letting them consume her. First, I didn't know what to do with all of that. How do you love someone whose past is still so alive, every memory so vivid it can make you pause? How do you accept a part of her life without feeling lost or jealous? I reminded myself that loving Kayla meant not just loving her, but embracing the story she had already lived, the people who had shaped her along the way. And slowly, I realized that real love isn't about erasing the past, it's about learning to live alongside it. One thing that took me by surprise, something that made me nervous at first, was Kayla's relationship with her late fiancé's parents. They weren't just people she cared about. They were deeply woven into her life, almost like a second set of parents. I remember the first time I visited them, feeling both welcomed and slightly out of place. They greeted me warmly, invited me to sit, shared stories, and asked about my life with genuine interest. I watched Kayla's face light up as she interacted with them, and it hit me. This connection wasn't superficial, it was real, deep, and enduring. And if I wanted to love her fully, I needed to respect it, not as an intruder, but as someone who could walk alongside her in her present life. The early days weren't easy. I would notice the photos on the shelves, small mementos, little gifts exchanged long ago, and wonder if I belonged in that space. But when I looked at Kayla, at how she laughed at my jokes or listened intently to my stories, I realized love isn't just about two people, it's about acceptance, understanding, and sometimes stepping into a story that existed before you and finding your place in it. I remember long evenings when Kayla shared stories about him, their walks in the rain, arguments that ended in hugs, quiet mornings, sipping coffee. I listened, feeling a twinge of jealousy, but also gratitude for being included in her narrative. I wasn't jealous of a man who had passed, but of the space he once held in her life, and in the same moment, I learned to see that space as part of her, something I could love alongside her, rather than compete against. One Sunday afternoon stands out vividly. Kayla took me to visit her late fiancé's parents. Their house was cozy, full of laughter and memories. I felt both welcomed and slightly out of place, knowing I was stepping into a world that existed before me. Kayla introduced me as my new boyfriend, but when I looked at her eyes, I saw respect, affection, and love that extended beyond me. I understood that loving her meant honoring those bonds, not as a rival, but as someone who could coexist with them, someone she could trust to navigate her world with care. There were moments of doubt, I won't lie. Every story she told, every memory she recounted, made my heart ache and my mind race. But the more I listened, the more I realized something crucial. Kayla didn't want me to replace anyone. She wanted me to be present, to walk with her in the now, to cherish her as she is. That was a challenge, yes, but also an opportunity to grow, to love more deeply, not just with heart, but with understanding. One crisp afternoon, we walked down a tree-lined street, leaves swirling around us. Kayla held my hand, spoke of him, of the things she missed, of the things she was grateful for. I looked into her eyes and saw joy mingled with sorrow. And I understood something vital. Real love isn't about erasing the past. It's about walking forward together, hand in hand, through all the fragments of life. I told myself if I could stand there with her, embracing this moment, I would not just be her partner, I would be someone who truly understands her in those first months. Loving Kayla was a lesson in balance. I learned not to be jealous of her memories, to see the beauty in the connections she maintained, and to manage my emotions when the past and present collided. I learned to respect her late fiancé's parents, not just as her family, but as people who helped shape the woman I loved. Each dinner, each conversation, each gentle gesture was a lesson in patience, empathy, and the kind of love that doesn't demand possession. I remember one evening, during a visit to her late fiancé's parents, when they cooked dinner and shared laughter, Kayla's eyes sparkling with happiness. I stood there, feeling both embraced and slightly out of place. And then I realized I didn't need to replace anyone. I just needed to be myself, love her in my own way, and accept that the past wasn't an enemy, was simply part of the story. We were continuing together. What struck me most was watching her hug them, seeing the trust and bond she shared with them. I knew then that if I could respect it, we could build a new family together, one where past and present could coexist, and where love wasn't limited by anything. I reminded myself that if I could learn to love her fully and openly, I would be privileged to love a woman who was whole, not in spite of her past, but because of it. Those early days with Kayla were a blend of learning and feeling, loving and worrying. I learned to listen, to remain silent when necessary, to express my feelings without imposing them. Every moment with her was a lesson in love, growth, and patience. And I understood if I wanted to walk forward with her, I had to learn to love her in the way she deserved, not as a replacement for the past, but as a partner in her present and future. And that's how it all began. Standing there, walking beside her, holding her hand, I realized that loving Kayla was a journey into someone else's world shaped by love, loss, and memory. And it was in that world, accepting all of it, that I began to understand what it truly meant to love someone. Loving Kayla wasn't something that happened overnight. It was a process, unfolding slowly, like a book you can't put down because every page carries meaning. Every moment with her revealed another fragment of her life, her memories, grief, quiet, resilience, and each fragment demanded attention, care, and understanding. I learned quickly that if I wanted to be with her, I couldn't just focus on the present. I had to embrace her past as well. At first it was challenging. I'd watch her smile while telling stories about her late fiancé, and I'd feel that familiar twinge in my chest, jealousy, perhaps, but also awe. Awe at how fully she had loved, how deeply she had cared, how capable she was of holding on to love without letting it destroy her. It was humbling to realize that this woman, standing beside me, had been through something profound and had come out with her heart intact, even open to love again. We started spending more time with her late fiancé's parents. They treated me with warmth that could disarm anyone, and I could see the love in Kayla's eyes when she interacted with them. It wasn't romantic, it was familial, comforting, unbreakable. And yet, I felt like an outsider stepping into a world carefully built over years of love and grief. I had to learn my role, not to replace, not to intrude, but to coexist respectfully, to contribute to her present without diminishing her past. I remember sitting in their living room one afternoon, drinking coffee and reminiscing about old trips, small victories, even silly arguments. Kayla laughed with them in that easy, unguarded way that showed their bond was strong. I felt a pang of inadequacy, but also gratitude. Gratitude that I was allowed into this world, given a chance to love her fully, not just her present, but the entire constellation of her experiences. It was during these quiet moments that I began to understand something essential. Love isn't about control, possession, or fearing the past will overshadow the present. It's about respect, patience, and empathy. Showing up for someone, especially when things are complicated, is what matters. Loving Kayla meant learning to navigate this complexity without losing myself or resenting her for the love she had once given. Some days were harder. I'd overthink, imagining the past overshadowing our relationship, wondering if I was enough. Nights were the worst, lying awake thinking about her memories, questioning if I could ever compete with someone etched into her life. Yet, when I saw her smile the next morning, the trust in her eyes, I realized love isn't a competition. Love is choosing, every day, to stand together despite uncertainty. One crisp evening, walking along a quiet street, leaves crunching beneath our feet. Kayla spoke about the good days, the bad days, the moments that still made her heart ache. And I listened, really listened, not with fear or insecurity, but to understand, to bear witness, and to honor her story. I realized my love for her would always include space for these memories. I didn't have to erase him to be present in her life. I just had to accept that he shaped the woman I was falling for. Over time, I saw the beauty in her past, how it informed her compassion, patience, and ability to love deeply, how it allowed her to appreciate small things, treasure connection, and embrace vulnerability without fear. Loving her meant learning from her, letting her perspective shape how I approached not just our relationship, but life itself. I also learned about boundaries, hers and mine. Loving someone with grief isn't about losing yourself. It's about finding rhythm and balance. I learned when to speak, when to hold silence, when to offer comfort, and when to let her process alone. Each conversation, each glance, was a lesson in trust and patience. And I grew confident in my place, not as a replacement, but as a partner worthy of her heart in the here and now. Some of my deepest lessons came in small moments. Sitting side by side on a couch, flipping through old photo albums, watching her eyes light up, then soften. Listening to her recount tiny details, the way he laughed, their jokes, the quiet ways they loved, and realizing these weren't barriers. They were invitations to understand her more deeply. I felt privileged, honored to be included in a world that existed before me. By several months in, I could see the change in myself. I wasn't just learning about Kayla. I was learning about love itself. How to give space without withdrawing. How to cherish someone's memories without feeling threatened. How to trust that the bond we were building wasn't diminished by her past. Being with her meant growing alongside her, embracing all pieces of her life, and finding joy in how our lives intertwined. And then came the test's grief resurfacing unexpectedly. Messages from her late fiancé's parents, anniversaries of his passing. I felt raw, exposed, unsure. But I learned to stand beside her, hold her hand, remind myself that love isn't static, it's adaptive, resilient, patient. My role was to be present, steady, offering a love that honored both her past and our present. It wasn't easy. I questioned myself. Could I handle it? Was my heart strong enough? Would my patience last? But every time I saw her smile, caught her gaze, heard her laughter, I remembered why I was there. She wasn't asking me to compete with the past. She was asking me to be present. And slowly, I understood that was enough. One evening, at a small gathering at her late fiancé's parents' house, the aroma of home-cooked food and soft laughter filled the room. I joined conversations, shared stories, laughed, and felt a quiet shift, fear and jealousy giving way to understanding and connection. I was no longer an outsider. I was part of something bigger, a family network built on love, loss, and respect. Through these experiences, I grasped a fundamental truth. Love isn't just about passion or romance. It's about empathy, respect, and showing up even when it's complicated. Loving Kayla meant embracing a world she had already built, honoring those she cared about, and finding my place within it without diminishing her experiences. It was a lesson in humility, patience, devotion, shaping me into a partner I could be proud of by this point. I had learned to navigate the delicate balance of past and present. I could laugh with her, cry with her, and sit in silence, knowing every moment strengthened our bond. I wasn't just loving Kayla. I was learning how to love deeply, thoughtfully, enduringly, and I realized this was just the beginning. Loving Kayla meant stepping into a life already rich with memories, choosing each day to walk beside her, hold her hand, and build a future honoring everything before, while creating something uniquely ours. Complicated, challenging, but beautiful a love shaped not just by the present, but by echoes of the past and hope for what was yet to come. A few weeks ago, as we started preparing for the wedding, Kayla brought up something that caught me completely off guard. We were sitting on the couch, afternoon sunlight streaming through the window, and she took my hand gently. "Hey, after my dance with my dad, I'd like to have a second dance with my late fiancé's dad. Vanilla Twilight. Are you okay with that?" My chest tightened instantly. The song, I knew it too well, it was a love song tied to someone else. And the idea of her dancing with his father on our wedding day filled me with a strange cocktail of emotions. Jealousy, unease, and, oddly, respect for the memory she wanted to honor. I tried to stay calm. "Kayla, I want to be honest with you," I said, exhaling slowly. I'm not sure how I feel about it. It's hard for me." Her eyes met mine, soft, understanding, but steady. "I know I don't want you to feel replaced or insufficient. I just want to honor him and his family, just for a moment." I understood her. I truly did. But still, my heart wavered. I had already accepted her memories, her late fiancé's parents, as part of our lives. But this felt different. This was our day, the moment I had dreamed of sharing with her completely. Without shadows from the past, we sat in silence for a moment, listening to the faint hum of the neighborhood outside and our own hearts. I felt the honesty in her voice, the respect she carried for her past. But I also felt my own fear, the fear that, even without meaning to, I might feel like I was standing next to a ghost in her love story. I decided to speak my truth. "Kayla, I love you, and I love everything that makes you, you. I don't want him to be forgotten, but this is our day. I don't want to see you dancing to a song that belongs to someone else. I don't want to feel like I'm competing for your heart. Kayla looked at me, and for just a moment, neither of us said a word. In that silence, I felt the weight of fear, love, and loyalty intertwine. Then she gently squeezed my hand. I get it. I don't want to hurt you. We'll find another way. I want everything that day to be ours. I exhaled, feeling a small wave of relief, but inside, the mix of emotions lingered. I realized something crucial that night. Loving her, being with her, wasn't always going to be easy. There would be moments when the past would reach forward, not because anyone was competing, but because her history was alive, present, and we would need to navigate it together. That night, I lay awake for a long time, asking myself if I was strong enough to love her the way she deserved, honoring her past, yet fully present in our now. And slowly, I understood, it's challenges like this that make love grow. If I could face jealousy, insecurity, and still keep my heart open, then our love would be stronger. The next day, we talked again, softly, honestly. She shared why the song meant so much, the memories she wanted to preserve, but also reassured me. Today is about us, about the love we're building together. I nodded, and a sense of calm settled over me. I realized then that loving Kayla didn't mean erasing her memories or pretending the past didn't exist. It meant accepting her history while protecting the present and future we were creating. And I knew, even with moments of doubt, we would face them together, hand in hand, honoring memories while making new ones of our own. That was the first real test, but also one of the most important lessons. Love is never simple, but it's always worth it. And I knew that, come the wedding day, even with echoes of the past, we would find a way to make the day ours completely, honestly, beautifully. The morning of the wedding was quiet, almost surreal. The sun was rising over the suburban streets, casting soft gold light across the house where Kayla and I were getting ready. I could hear laughter and faint music drifting from the hall outside. The world already moving toward celebration, while inside, I felt a storm brewing, one of anticipation, love, and, yes, a lingering shadow of uncertainty. Kayla was radiant. As always, her nerves hidden behind calm grace. Her dress shimmered softly in the morning light, the kind of dress that makes everyone forget everything else. But beneath that perfection, I could see the weight of the day pressing on her, the pressure to be everything for everyone, to honor past and present in equal measure. I reached for her hand. "You ready?" I asked. She smiled, that half smile that always made my chest tighten. "As ready as I'll ever be," she said, and squeezed my hand back. We walked together to the ceremony site, a small outdoor garden bathed in spring light. Guests were arriving, some laughing, some quietly chatting, and I noticed the faces of her late fiancé's parents, smiling warmly, already part of the tapestry of our day. I felt a knot in my stomach, not of resentment, but of vulnerability. Their presence, their love, their memory, it all mattered to Kayla, and I had to find my place in it without overshadowing or being overshadowed. The ceremony itself passed in a blur of vows, laughter, and tears. When we reached the moment of the father-daughter dance, I watched Kayla glide across the floor with her dad, the soft strains of a sentimental song filling the air. She laughed, she teared up, she held on to him tightly, and I felt something inside me shifted deep. Tender understanding that these moments were as much about love as they were about history, about family, about the foundation that shaped her into the woman I loved. Then came the moment that had been hanging in my mind for weeks, the second dance. the one she had initially requested with her late fiancé's dad. We had talked about it, we had compromised, but now, seeing her approach him, I felt the old knot of unease tighten briefly. She was graceful, respectful, careful not to make me feel excluded, and yet, the ghost of what once was hovered lightly in the room. I reminded myself to breathe. This wasn't a competition, I told myself. This was love in all its complicated, messy glory. I could honor her past while still claiming our present. And so I stepped back, watching quietly, feeling the mixture of pride, love, and yes, lingering vulnerability. The dance was brief, intimate, and tender. Kayla's eyes met mine across the room at one point, and in that glance, I understood everything. Her past didn't diminish us. Her memories didn't take away from what we were building. And in that silent exchange, I felt a surge of reassurance, a quiet victory of trust, patience, and unconditional love. After the dance, we joined hands, laughing softly, relief washing over both of us. The rest of the day unfolded in a kind of beautiful chaos: speeches, hugs, tears, laughter, the clinking of glasses, the small moments of connection that made everything feel sacred. I realized then that love isn't a straight line. It's a series of choices, moments of understanding, acts of bravery and trust. Today, we had chosen each other over fear, over insecurity, over the lingering shadows of memory. By the time the evening came, as we danced our first dance as husband and wife, I felt it fully, the weight of the day, the love that had carried us here, and the quiet truth that we had survived the first real test of our marriage. The past was present, yes, but it was no longer a threat. It was part of the story, woven into ours in a way that made it richer, deeper, more real. I realized then, more than ever, that loving Kayla wasn't about denying history or pretending the past didn't exist. It was about stepping into it with courage, respecting it, and choosing every day to walk forward together. And if this was the first glimpse of what life as a married couple would be like, balancing memories, love, and hope, I knew we could handle it together. The day ended with laughter echoing under the stars, hands entwined, hearts full. And as we looked at each other, exhausted and exhilarated, I understood something profound. Love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice every single day to be present, to honor, to trust, and to build a life that belongs to you, both past, present, and future, all intertwined. After the wedding, life slowly settled back into its usual rhythm, but for Kayla and me, things weren't exactly peaceful. There was always a part of me that worried about her past, about the shadow of the man who had once been such a big part of her life. I couldn't deny that sometimes I felt small in comparison to that history I had to learn to live with. The first few weeks were a delicate balance. We were enjoying the newness of being newlyweds, but also figuring out boundaries between past and present. One evening, Kayla received a message from her late fiancé's parents, and my chest tightened. Not because they were bad people, but because I knew she was sharing the deepest part of her memory with them, a part I could never touch. I forced myself to stay calm, to avoid jealousy or frustration. Instead, I learned to observe, to listen, and to ask myself, can I be patient enough to love her fully, without feeling threatened by her past? One afternoon, while we were organizing the house and sorting wedding photos and keepsakes, I paused at a picture of Kayla with her late fiancé's parents. I asked softly, am I supposed to feel something about these moments? She looked at me with gentle seriousness. I know it's not easy for you. But you have to understand, this is part of me. I'm not forgetting him, but I choose you every day. If you can trust that, you'll see you're not losing anything at all." Her words sank in. I realized love isn't just about happiness, it's about emotional resilience. I had to learn to live alongside memory, accept it, and still keep my heart open. One evening, while walking down our familiar street, Kayla told me about a trip she had taken long ago with hintiny details. Sweet moments, but tinged with heartache. My heart ached too, but instead of turning away, I held her hand tightly. I listened not to compare, not to compete, but to understand her, to witness her past as part of her story. Gradually, I learned that moments like this weren't threats. They were invitations to understand her more deeply, to become part of a world she had built before I arrived. Every time I saw her smile, cry, or quietly remember, I felt privileged to stand by her, to participate in a love that was messy, complex, and wholly ours. But the challenges didn't stop with memory. Some days, a fleeting insecurity would surface, a story, a photo, or the gentle attention she gave someone else. I learned to recognize my emotions without letting them dictate my actions, and most importantly, to communicate openly with Kayla. We talked more, honestly, about fears, anxieties, and hopes. One evening, after dinner, I looked at her and said, "I want to love you without fear, without comparison, but I need time to figure out how." She smiled, placing her hand over my chest. "You're already doing it in your own way. You just haven't noticed yet. We're both learning together." I realized then that loving Kayla is an ongoing journey, a continuous process. It's not just about romance or passion. It's about patience, respect, and presence. I had to learn to stand beside her, even when memories and emotions made things messy. The challenges after the wedding taught me a crucial truth. True love isn't about erasing pain or forgetting the past. It's about living alongside it, accepting it, and still choosing each other every day. Every hard moment, every pang of insecurity was an opportunity to grow closer, to deepen our bond. And when I looked at Kayla, her eyes full of trust and love, I knew we could handle it. We had learned to stand side by side, not just in the easy moments, but in the most complicated ones, because that's what real love looks like. About 3 months after the wedding, life had mostly settled back into its usual rhythm. But for Kayla and me, peace was still elusive. It seemed that every quiet moment brought reminders of the past, shadows that lingered even as I tried to enjoy the present with her. Then one evening, a phone call from her late fiancé's parents set everything in motion. They wanted to visit, bringing a meaningful keepsake, a watch they said Kayla had treasured. The news hit me like a punch in the chest. A surge of conflicting emotions flooded me: jealousy, insecurity, and an unnamed fear. I knew I had no right to prevent her from maintaining that connection, no right to erase her memories. But in that moment, I faced one of the greatest tests yet. Could I accept her past without feeling threatened? Kayla noticed the hesitation in my eyes and spoke softly, her voice calm but firm. "Hey, I don't want this to make you feel uncomfortable. This is just a piece of my past, and I want to share it with his parents, not to forget you or what we're building together." I nodded, trying to steady myself, but the unease lingered. She placed her hand on my shoulder gently. "Trust me, you're not losing your place in my heart. I choose you every day, and today is no different." That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my thoughts tangled. How do you love someone whose past is so deeply present? How do you stop feeling small in the shadow of memories you can't touch? And how do you turn this challenge into an opportunity to make our love stronger? The next day, her parents arrived, carrying the watch and a few other keepsakes. I stood beside Kayla, quietly observing her receive them with warmth, her eyes reflecting both joy and sorrow. Instead of feeling excluded, I realized I was being invited into a world that existed long before. I came along a world I now got to share. We sat together, sipping tea as Kayla recounted stories from her past trips. The jokes, the quiet moments of love. For the first time, I didn't feel jealousy or comparison. I just listened, and I realized something profound. Love isn't about possession. It's about presence. It's about standing beside someone, even when their past is very much alive. A few days later, after a long conversation, I admitted my insecurities to Kayla. She listened without judgment, gently reassuring me. This time, we weren't just talking about memories. We were discussing how we wanted to build our future, a future that honored the past while fully embracing the present. Then came another test, more intense than I anticipated. One evening, she casually mentioned a trip she had taken with him years ago. A spike of jealousy and anxiety shot through me. My chest tightened, and I felt the urge to flee from the emotion entirely. But instead of turning away, I held her hand tighter, breathed deeply, and really listened. I learned to separate my fear from reality. She was here with me, not him. In the weeks that followed, I gradually learned to navigate the balance of my emotions. Every keepsake, every story, every memory shared became a bridge rather than a barrier. I learned to trust, to stand firmly beside her even when the past knocked loudly at the door. And in those moments, I realized something essential. True love isn't just about sweetness and passion, it's about facing challenges together, with patience and steadfastness. Another night, Kayla slept beside me, her hand still entwined with mine. I watched her, my heart full of gratitude. Grateful that she chose me, trusted me, and that we were learning together how to step through the shadows of the past, without being defeated, turning them instead into the strength of our love. I knew then, without doubt, that even as challenges continued, even as memories lingered, we would overcome them. Because real love isn't about avoiding the past, it's about standing together through everything, and creating a story that belongs solely to the two of us. And I understood something else. This was only the beginning. Every challenge, every moment of doubt, every pang of insecurity was an opportunity to grow closer, to deepen our connection, and to love each other in a way that is profound, resilient, and enduring. One late afternoon in May, a few weeks after we had settled the keepsakes from the past into our home, I felt a simmering tension beneath the surface. Kayla was preparing a small, intimate gathering with her late fiancé's parents and some of his old friends to commemorate his birthday. Anxiety, fear, and a twinge of jealousy bubbled up inside me. "Are you sure I should come?" I asked, my voice wavering, trying to mask my unease. Kayla met my gaze, calm but firm. "I want you here. You're the present in my life, and I want you to witness this part of my past. But if you feel uncomfortable, it's okay to tell me." I stayed silent. I knew she didn't want me to feel pressured, yet deep down, I felt like I was standing at a crossroads. Should I retreat and let fear rule me, or rise to the challenge and show that our love could stand in the shadow of the past? That day, The gathering was lively but intimate. Kayla laughed and chatted freely, and her late fiancé's parents welcomed me warmly. I tried to blend in, listening to old stories, joining in laughter, and sharing quiet moments. Yet, in the pit of my stomach, a storm of emotions raged: love, jealousy, fear, and the desperate need to prove I deserved her. Then came the moment I had been dreading. Kayla suggested a dance with his father to the song Vanilla Twilight, a song I knew held deep meaning for them. My chest tightened. Why did it make me so uncomfortable? I had agreed to this beforehand, yet watching her step onto the floor, I realized my insecurities were still very real. My love was being tested in front of me, head-on by a shadow of the past. I took a deep breath and simply watched. Instead of jealousy or anger, I recognized an important truth. I could not control the past, but I could control how I loved her in the present. I chose to trust her. I chose to stand still, to let her have this moment, and to let the past and present coexist without harming us. The dance ended, and she turned back to me, eyes meeting mine. I saw a gentle smile, reassurance, and gratitude reflected there. At that moment, I understood that the challenge wasn't meant to divide us. It was meant to test trust, patience, and the depth of our love. The rest of the evening unfolded in a warm but tense atmosphere, and I sensed a profound shift within myself. I no longer felt diminished by her past. I had learned to stand firm, to love without jealousy, and most importantly, to let our love grow even with memories that lingered as the night wound down. Kayla rested her head on my shoulder on the porch, the soft glow of the lights illuminating her face. I felt a deep, serene gratitude, grateful that she had chosen me, that she trusted me, and that together we were learning to step through the shadows of the past without being defeated, turning them instead into the strength of our love. And I knew, without a doubt, that no matter what challenges lay ahead, no matter how persistent the past might be, we would overcome them together. True love isn't about avoiding the past. It's about standing together through every storm and choosing each other, day after day, in the present and for the future. After that emotional gathering with her late fiancé's parents, something shifted inside me. I realized our relationship wasn't just about the present, it was about how we chose to carry the past together. His memory, the keepsakes, the stories, they weren't obstacles standing between us. They were part of what made Kayla who she was, and by extension, who we were becoming. One evening, sunlight spilled through the kitchen window as Kayla and I sat with warm mugs of tea in our hands. We talked about the future not in abstract terms, but in concrete ones. A little house with a garden, road trips across the country, quiet rituals we could build for ourselves, ordinary things that, in the right light, felt extraordinary because they were ours. You know what I've learned, Kayla said, her eyes steady on mine. Love isn't about chasing perfect moments. It's about patience, about trust. It's choosing to stay, even when things are messy. I took a slow breath. I've learned that too, that I don't need to erase your past to love your present. That standing beside you through all of it, good, hard, complicated, that's what makes us stronger. In the weeks that followed, we built tiny rituals of our own. Morning walks through the neighborhood, cooking dinner side by side, talking late into the night until the world outside went quiet. The house still held reminders of her past, but they no longer felt like ghosts. They became part of the story that had carried her here. To us. One night, as we were folding laundry, Kayla looked up at me. I want us to have a wedding dance that's just ours. A song that belongs to nobody else. Something to mark what we're building now. Her words caught me off guard in the best way. In that moment, I realized that marriage wasn't about trying to avoid the shadows of yesterday. It was about creating new light together. We didn't have to compete with what had come before. We just had to make something that was wholly ours. We started dreaming bigger. Trips we hadn't taken yet. Traditions we wanted to start. Even silly little goals, like learning how to make perfect sourdough bread that only mattered to us. Every plan, every laugh, every conversation felt like laying another stone in the foundation of a life we were building. One rooted in trust and intention. I learned to open up more, too. To admit the insecurities that sometimes gnawed at me. To say out loud the fears that once kept me awake at night. And each time, instead of pulling away, Kayla drew closer. She listened. She reassured me not with big speeches, but with the steady warmth of someone who was all in. One quiet night on the porch, with her head resting on my shoulder and the soft hum of crickets around us, I felt it, the shift. We weren't just surviving the weight of the past anymore. We were creating a future strong enough to carry both memory and hope. Love, I realized, wasn't about perfection. It wasn't about pretending grief didn't exist. It was about showing up, building, and choosing each other every day. And in that moment, I knew our story wasn't defined by what had been lost. It was defined by what we chose to create together, here and now. The final days before our wedding felt like a slow-motion reel. Everything was ready: venue, flowers, band, my suit, the white dress Kayla had picked out months earlier. But the closer we got to the big day, the heavier my chest felt. It wasn't the usual nerves, not just pre-wedding jitters. It was something denser, like a cloud hanging just above us, whispering that one last test was waiting. That night we were sitting in the living room. The coffee table covered with sticky notes, guest lists, seating charts, schedules. Kayla was holding a red pen, carefully marking changes, while I sipped my tea, feeling relieved that things were finally coming together. Then she put the pen down. For a moment she was completely still, her eyes full of hesitation, like she was fighting with herself. "Hey," she started softly, her voice barely steady. "There's something I want to ask you." I smiled, trying to lighten the air. "You sound serious. What's up?" She took a deep breath. "During the wedding, after I dance with my dad, I'd like to have another dance with his dad. And I want the song to be Vanilla Twilight." It was like the lights in the room flickered out. My chest sank. Vanilla Twilight. Just the name alone carried weight I couldn't ignore. That wasn't just any song, it was their song. The one she and her late fiancé had played during quiet nights. The song that carried the words "I love you" when no words were spoken. It was their symbol, their history. And now, she wanted it played at our wedding. I felt a lump in my throat. "Are you sure, Kayla? This day, it's supposed to be ours. I don't want anything to overshadow that." Her eyes dropped, lashes trembling. Then she looked back at me, her voice steady but filled with sorrow. "I understand how you feel. But for me, this dance isn't about living in the past. It's about honoring what shaped me, what made me stronger, so I could love you with everything I have today. I don't want to erase it. I want to close that chapter honestly." Her words cut deep. She wasn't trying to hurt me, but the jealousy, the insecurity rushed in like a wave. For a split second, I thought, Am I just living in another man's shadow? Am I the sequel to a love story that ended too soon? I couldn't answer. I grabbed my coat and walked out. The night was cold and wet, the streetlights casting gold onto the slick pavement. I walked aimlessly, the city alive with bars and neon signs, laughter spilling onto the sidewalks. Yet inside me was only silence. I kept asking myself, what does it mean to really love someone? Is it holding on so tightly that no one else can touch them, not even their memories? Or is it trusting them enough to accept everything that came before, knowing they still choose you? Part of me wanted to scream, no, absolutely not. To erase all remnants of the man who came before me, to claim Kayla as wholly mine. But another part whispered, if you truly love her, you have to let her be whole. Let her grieve, let her honor, let her live in, then choose you. When I finally came home, it was close to midnight. The apartment was quiet, the only light coming from the lamp by the couch where Kayla sat curled up. Her hands clasped tightly, her eyes heavy with guilt. I sat down beside her, took her cold, trembling hands in mine, and held on. I've been thinking, I said quietly, and I realized love isn't possession. It's acceptance. If this dance makes you feel whole, I'll be there. I'll stand and watch, and I'll know that after everything you still choose me. Her tears spilled instantly, her body shaking as she threw her arms around me. I choose you, always you. But I need you to understand, love doesn't die. It changes. And because I once loved deeply, I can love you even more completely now. In her arms, I finally understood. The hardest part wasn't her past, it was trust. Trusting her heart, trusting her choice, trusting that I wasn't second best. Yes, when that song plays, it will sting. My chest will tighten, my heart will ache. But I also know that when it ends, Kayla will walk back to me. She put her hand in mine and show me that I'm not a replacement. I am her present. I am her future. That night we stayed there, hand in hand, saying nothing. And for the first time, I felt at peace with all the pieces of her story, even the ones that weren't mine. The morning of our wedding felt almost unreal. The air was crisp, the sky an endless stretch of blue, and the world seemed unusually still, as if it knew the importance of what was about to unfold. I stood in front of the mirror in my suit, tying and retying my tie until my hands shook. It wasn't nerves in the usual sense, it was something deeper. A weight that came from knowing how far we had traveled to reach this day. From all the doubts and choices and quiet acts of faith that had carried us here, the venue was glowing, filled with white roses and soft candlelight. Guests murmured in their seats, anticipation humming through the room. When the music shifted and Kayla appeared at the entrance, walking on her father's arm, my breath caught. She was radiant, not just because of the dress or the way the light haloed around her, but because she carried herself with the strength of someone who had lived through love and loss and had chosen to love again. For the first time that day, my fear loosened its grip. She was walking toward me, not toward a memory, not toward a ghost toward me. The ceremony unfolded like a dream. The vows, the rings, the tears, all blurred into one powerful moment when I heard her voice crack on the words, "I choose you." The applause erupted, but all I could focus on was her eyes. They were steady, sure, filled with a promise that went beyond words. Then came the reception, with its laughter, toasts, and clinking glasses. Yet even as the room filled with celebration, A part of me was bracing for what I knew was coming. The lights dimmed slightly. The band began the soft notes of the father-daughter dance. Kayla moved into her father's arms, swaying slowly, her head resting gently on his shoulder. The room fell quiet. Every guest, watching the tender exchange between a father and a daughter he had raised into the woman now standing by my side. It was beautiful, raw, and so full of emotion it drew tears from more than a few eyes in the room. And then came the moment the MC announced a second dance, and Kayla crossed the floor toward him, her late fiancé's father. A hush spread across the room, as if everyone knew instinctively that this was no ordinary moment. The opening notes of Vanilla Twilight floated through the air, carrying with them a weight I could feel deep in my chest. There it was, the song that had belonged to another love, another life. My stomach clenched, and for a moment the old fears surged. Am I enough? Will I always be standing in someone else's shadow? But then Kayla's eyes lifted. She took his hand. They began to sway, and with each turn, her gaze found me. Over and over, as if to anchor herself to me, as if to tell me, without words, this isn't about the past. This is about honoring what was, so I can fully be with you now. And I wasn't the only one who felt it. The room understood. This wasn't a romantic dance. It wasn't a longing for something lost. It was gratitude. It was family. It was a daughter acknowledging the man who had once been like a father to her, and the love that still tied them together through memory. I watched, my chest tight but my heart steady. And when the song ended, Kayla let go of his hand, wiped her tears, and walked straight back to me. The way she slipped her hand into mine, the way her smile broke through her tears, that was the answer I had been searching for all along. Then came our first dance. The band played, and as I pulled her close, everything else fell away. Her head rested against my chest, her hand fit perfectly in mine, and I felt the rhythm of her heart sinking with mine. No ghosts, no comparisons, just us, just now, just the future stretching out before us. As we moved together, I realized something I had struggled with for so long. Her love for him didn't diminish her love for me. In fact, it made it stronger. Because she had known deep love before, she understood how to give it again, fully and without fear. She wasn't choosing between past and present. She was building a future. And she had chosen me to stand in it with her later that night. After the music had quieted and the crowd had thinned, I stepped outside into the cool night air. The stars shimmered overhead, and I felt a wave of peace settle over me. I whispered a quiet thank you to the man who came before me, to the love that shaped her, and even to the pain that had taught us both how precious this new beginning truly was. When Kayla joined me, slipping her arm through mine, I looked at her and knew with absolute certainty this wasn't the end of a story, but the beginning of a greater one. Our marriage wouldn't be defined by the shadow of the past, but by the strength we found in choosing each other every single day. Our wedding wasn't just a celebration of love, was a testament to trust, to resilience, and to the belief that even in the face of loss, love can rise again, brighter and stronger than before. And as we walked away from the venue, hand in hand, surrounded by the soft laughter of friends and family lingering behind us, I felt it in my bones. The real journey was just beginning. A journey not of competition with the past, but of building something lasting, beautiful, and entirely our own.